Everyone always said I was lucky to have a second family. They saw the tidy lawn, the warm Sunday dinners, the polite smiles. No one ever asked what happened when the curtains were drawn. I was 8 when Mom married Richard. He was the kind of man people trusted. Tall, articulate, a respected high school teacher. In public, he held my mother's hand like she was made of porcelain. At home, she bent like glass under pressure. I learned early to be small, to listen more than speak. Richard never touched me, not the way you might fear, but his words were weapons and silence was his favorite kind of war. Mom loved me. I knew that. But love isn't always strong enough to stand between you and the storm, especially when it comes wrapped in a paycheck and a wedding ring. Then there was Lily, his little princess. She had everything I didn't. His smile, his attention, his approval. She was too young to see the cracks, or maybe she just never looked. I didn't blame her. She was just a child. I used to be one too. Before I learned that a quiet house can be the loudest place in the world. I was 17 the first time he crossed the line in a way that couldn't be explained away. It wasn't just a lingering hand on my back anymore, or a look that made my skin crawl. It was real, undeniable. And no matter how many times I had tried to tell myself it was just my imagination before, that night shattered any room for doubt. I remember the way the hallway light flickered, the way the floorboards creaked under his steps like they were warning me. My mother was asleep. Lily, too. I had nowhere to go. When it was over, I sat on the bathroom floor for hours, scrubbing my skin until it burned. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not until days later, when I finally found the courage, or maybe just the desperation, to tell my mother. She cried. I'll never forget that. She cried like she was the one who had been hurt. Then she looked at me with eyes full of panic, not empathy, and whispered, "Emma, please, don't say things like that. You don't understand. He's the one who takes care of us." I did understand. I understood perfectly. What she really meant was, don't ruin this. Don't ruin us. And just like that, I became the problem. From that moment on, I wasn't Emma anymore. I was the girl who made things difficult. I was the walking accusation, the threat to their peace, the ticking time bomb in a house that prided itself on quiet mornings and Sunday sermons. I watched my mother pull away from me. Guilt hardened into distance. She stopped looking me in the eyes. She stopped asking how I was. And Lily, she was just 12 then, was too young to understand, but old enough to notice the tension. I heard her one night through the thin wall between our rooms telling a friend on the phone, "Emma's just dramatic. She always wants attention that cut deeper than anything Richard ever did." Because Lily used to braid my hair and beg to sleep in my bed when she had nightmares. But now I was a liar in her eyes, a jealous stepsister trying to tear apart the picture-perfect family she adored. I started to shrink into myself. I stopped speaking unless I had to. I avoided mirrors. I avoided people. Depression settled into me like fog. Thick, choking, endless. I slept too much. I skipped meals. I skipped school. Sometimes I imagined what it would be like to just stop existing. I stood at the edge of bridges. I counted pills. I wrote letters I never sent, but I never followed through. Some small, stubborn part of me refused to let him be the end of my story. After graduation, I packed a bag in silence and left while everyone was out. No note, no goodbye. I don't know if they even noticed I was gone at first. Maybe Lily took my room. Maybe Richard told people I went off to college. Maybe my mother cried again, but this time with relief. For the next 10 years, I drifted. I never stayed anywhere long. I waited tables, stocked shelves, worked nights so I could sleep through the day. The less I saw people, the easier it was to breathe. But the pain never really left. It just learned to disguise itself. It wore the face of insomnia, the sting of casual touch, the sick rising nausea every time I saw his name in the paper or his face on a school newsletter. Mr. Richard Alcott honored for 20 years of outstanding service in education, a role model, a father figure, a pillar of the community. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream, to expose him, to make the world see what he really was. But every time I imagined standing up and telling my truth, I heard my mother's voice again. Don't say things like that. And worse, I heard my own voice, smaller, broken. No one will believe me. Because that's what they taught me. That my pain was inconvenient. That my truth was dangerous. That silence was safer than justice. But silence is a slow death. It eats you from the inside out. Sometimes I dream of going back, of standing on their porch and making them look at me. Really look at me. Of telling Lily everything. Again, only louder, stronger, with all the rage I never let myself feel. I imagine her face as the truth finally sinks in, and I don't know what I want more, her tears or her apology. And yet, I also imagine nothing happening at all. Just blank stares, a slammed door, another betrayal. There's a war inside me that never ends, between forgetting and remembering, between moving on and making them pay. I've spent years pretending to be okay, to build a life from the ashes. But every smile feels borrowed. Every good thing feels like it belongs to someone braver than me. I keep wondering when I'll stop being 17 in my head, trapped in that night, in that house, in that body I tried to disappear. Maybe someday I'll reclaim it. Maybe I'll speak, and this time someone will listen. But for now, I just keep breathing. And for now, that has to be enough. I never thought I'd find the strength to face him, let alone fight back. But the day I saw the headline, Richard nominated for honorary principal, I felt something inside me shatter and then ignite. Honorary principal. The man who had stolen my childhood, who had silenced me for years, was about to be given power over hundreds of young girls. It was a slap in the face, a cruel joke played by the world that never listened. I knew then I couldn't stay silent any longer. If I didn't act, more girls would suffer. More lives would be broken, just like mine was. That fire inside me grew into a fierce determination, not just for myself, but for every girl who had been hurt and silenced. The first step was learning. I dove into technology, teaching myself everything I could about digital forensics and hacking. It wasn't easy. I was rusty, and years of hiding had dulled my confidence. But every late night spent decoding files or restoring corrupted images fueled my resolve. I began digging through old diaries, forgotten photos, and voice recordings I'd made years ago, hoping to capture every detail I had buried deep inside my memory. Those files were my proof, my weapons, but I wasn't the only victim. I reached out quietly, using anonymous messages and encrypted chat rooms, searching for others who had suffered under Richard's control. 2 other women came forward, former students who had faced the same torment, their voices stifled by fear and the school's unwillingness to listen. Their stories matched mine too closely to be coincidence, and their pain echoed my own. Together, we shared our memories, our evidence, our rage. I knew that words alone wouldn't bring him down. I needed him to expose himself, to slip up, so I crafted a trap. I called him, posing as a reporter interested in his upcoming appointment. We talked for nearly an hour, and little by little, he revealed the truth. Offhand comments, twisted justifications, the casual cruelty of a predator who believed he was untouchable. I recorded every word. With all this in hand, I planned the perfect moment. Richard's honorary principal ceremony was more than just an event. It was the pinnacle of his deceit, the moment the town would celebrate the man who had destroyed so many lives. I chose that night to pull back the curtain. On the evening of the ceremony, the high school auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, the mayor, local reporters, students, even my mother and Lily. The air buzzed with anticipation, unaware of the storm about to break. Richard took the stage, basking in applause. He began his speech, thanking everyone for their support, speaking of dedication and trust. Behind him, the large LED screen flickered and then suddenly shifted, filling the room with images and audio clips. Old journal entries, photographs, and the recording of his own voice admitting the unspeakable. The room froze. The mayor's smile faltered. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Lily's eyes widened, tears forming but no sound escaping. I stepped forward from the crowd, my heart pounding, and looked Richard directly in the eyes. "I'm not here to forgive," I said, my voice clear and steady despite the shaking inside. "I'm here to remind everyone that not all monsters have claws." The silence was deafening. Then outrage exploded through the auditorium. Shouts, cries, stunned whispers. People who once praised him now recoiled in disbelief and anger. The police moved swiftly, taking Richard into custody, his confident facade crumbling with every step. My mother collapsed, overcome by shock and grief. Lily's sobs filled the room, but this time her eyes held something new. A terrified, shattered innocence, no longer mixed with disdain or disbelief. That night, I finally felt the weight begin to lift. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a survivor who refused to be invisible. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, the silence was broken. And with that, I found a flicker of hope. Richard was immediately taken into custody, and a thorough investigation was launched. One by one, other victims found the courage to come forward, their voices finally heard after years of silence. The man who once held power and respect in the community lost everything: his job, his reputation, and any shred of dignity. Justice, long delayed, began to take its course. Emma's family shattered under the weight of the truth. Her mother, unable to face the reality of what had happened, was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, overwhelmed by guilt and sorrow. Lily, now fully aware of the damage caused, offered a heartfelt apology to Emma, but the wounds were too deep, and forgiveness felt out of reach. As for Emma, she was no longer the fragile girl she once was. Though her healing was far from complete, she had reclaimed her voice, and with it, the right to exist without fear or shame. Standing on the shore, the ocean breeze brushing against her face, she whispered to herself, "Silence was once my refuge. Now, I use my voice to drag monsters into the light."